Hi everyone, it's Patrick again. Welcome to the next tutorial in the Miles Morales piece here. So yeah, this is coming along well, and this bit's actually quite fun. Doing the colouring is a pretty fun part. So I don't know if you remember last week I did this really dark shading, so we'll probably use that quite well as that's going to cover a lot of ground. I'm not 100% sure how I'm going to use this because, like I said before, I'm not too familiar with doing these dark shadows as inks. You know, I'm just not confident enough yet. I'm still learning as well. So, but we'll give it a go. So let's start with flat colors. Now, again, I'm using Clip Studio Paint here. I'm really just using it to lay out. Yeah, I like to do all my rendering in Clip Studio Paint. You know, but later on I'll put it into Photoshop to do all the last effects and things like that. But we need to lay out some flat colors first. So underneath my outlines layer, I'll put it right at the bottom, and I'll just call it, we'll just call it fill, you know, just because it's going to be the fill color. And so we've got our overall outlines here. So what I'll do is I'll just get my marquee lasso, sorry, not lasso, the magic wand is what I'm trying to say. And I'm going to click in the white area on the outside because that'll just wrap around all of his outlines, as long as it's all closed in, as long as I've connected and closed all the lines. So I've clicked on the outside. I like to hold shift and just tap again, which will just add to that, and it just kind of really hugs in on those outlines a little bit more. And then I'm going to Control Shift I, and that's going to invert that selection. So it's literally just selecting Miles now. And then I'm going to go to Selection, Shrink. I want to just shrink it by 1. And what that'll do is that's just going to bring it down. See here where the black is just, my selection is now inside and under the black. But if I didn't do that, it's a bit too close to the white. And when you have your colors, they can kind of just show a little bit. It's a little bit odd. So I really like to I like to tuck them under the black outlines a little bit more. Okay, and then I'm going to fill my coloring. So we need to choose a color for Miles here. I'm just going to go with a real navy kind of gray to start with. Maybe like that, and a little bit of saturation, not too much. And then I'll fill that. And I just need to put in a red now. And I'll select a nice red for Miles. So probably there, not too saturated and strong, just kind of like a mid-range, quite bright kind of red. And I'll just start using my fill bucket thing. And I'm going to fill that in. Sorry about that. And we're going to fill that right there, and just going to keep going. Okay, so I've laid out all the flat colors now. So what I usually like to do when I'm about to start doing my shading is I don't really like to work on a background that's white anymore. I used to, but I think it's actually quite important to fill that in with a grey, just a light medium grey, because you have to think of it in the way of, you know, how are they going to end up in the end? They're not really going to be on any kind of white backdrop at all. It's not going to be that bright white. There's going to be a city, there's going to be all this stuff, and overall it's going to have, you know, a darker shade to it. So the background I mean. So I think it's important to start when rendering to actually lay a bit of a grey down, because as you are going through and you're starting to render and shade, I think that white, that intense white in the back can actually affect the way you are doing your rendering. Not much, but it can when it comes to shading. So I learned that the hard way like a long time ago. I found that when I worked on a white background, my finished characters they'd be very saturated and a bit too bright themselves, because my eye was kind of just thinking white and bright, you know.
But when I'm working on a grey, everything just goes a bit more natural. Everything comes down to where it should be, and you're rendering and colouring at a place where it is a little bit better. So yeah, anyway, I thought that was important to add. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to make a new layer above the fill. So I'm going to be making a layer for every level of cell shading. So what I'm going to do is I'm holding Alt and I'm just going to tap, we've already got it, but I'm just making sure that I tap the light grey of Miles' suit there. I have it here, but what I like to do is I drag mine down to probably just a bit, so it's quite dark. So there we have it there. And I'm just gonna, that's the color that we're gonna be using for all the shading now. And that's it. I'm just gonna be sticking to that shade of gray, which is just a bit darker than the one on his suit right now. So with that layer above, I'm going to actually take it down to about 50%. This one, I'm actually pressing B now until I get to this airbrush, the soft airbrush. And I'm using that. I'm just going to hide the red. We're going to hide all the red and the red webbing, most of it. I'm actually going to hide the dark shading for now. And this is the first step. I'm actually going to be doing an airbrush, really soft kind of, let's do it, put that to 100% so you can see exactly what I'm doing for now. I'm literally just darkening around until I'm happy with, this is kind of just like a soft shading. Overall, just whack it in. Doesn't really have to be precise. His foot. All right. Now, like I said, that's pretty important. So we're going to fade that back down to 50%. Doesn't have to be perfect, just whatever. Okay, and I'm going to go another layer above. Don't have to name them or anything because this is just shading. And sorry, this is where I use my pen tool for the cell shading. So this is going to bring in all the sharp shading that I do. So with that new layer, just making sure, I will actually take that down to, I like to take to about 55%. And then we begin. I will need to bring back that shadowing layer. Since that's going to be so dark, we want to just go around that. I'm not going to repeat myself with that one there, as in like, I don't want to repeat all this shading that I did. So now I can draw like this around it. Do you know what I mean? So, all right, this is the tricky part. So I need to try and really think about where I'm adding all the rendering. And I'm trying to think of all the muscles and where they belong, and then I'm just kind of forming around that. So under his belly here is going to be quite dark. Another thing to remember with this shading that I'm doing right now is it's one of those ones you don't really have to think too hard about it, because this is the first level of shading, which means I'm actually going to go quite bold with it and really fill in a lot of areas like this and not really worry about it too much. Because as I go through the dark shades, they get smaller and smaller in size. So this is the biggest one and I'm doing more mass. I'm really just thinking about covering more ground with this layer here, so if that makes sense. So under his arm completely, I'm really just filling all that in under his arm. I'm not going to worry too much about that for now. And yeah, like I said, so I'm probably going to cover all that part there with those muscles. I'm actually going to cover it all because we're covering a lot of ground with this first layer here. So how about I just keep filling this out? We'll just speed this up a little bit so you can see what I'm doing, and then I'll explain some more. Okay, so I have fully rendered with that first layer now, and as you can see, like I said, I've covered a lot of ground on it, so I haven't done. What I mean by that is
instead of just doing little bits of shading like this, you know, where I'm doing just little bits like that and just thinking of it like that, that's not a good way to think about it, because I'm only covering little bits, little smaller sections there, like little bits, and that's not what you want to think about. So that's that part. What I wanted to do was boom, like a lot. So you really want to just the first layer is lots of shading. So overall, just where you can think, because it's going to be quite faint, and then we're going to add it. Each layer that goes above this, what I'm talking about is I'm about to do a new layer, and that will be the darker, just another shade of darkened over that. So, and that'll be smaller sections. Also, I thought I might mention as well, as you can see, I'm rendering the entire body, which includes the red tones as well. Even though you can't see the red here, what I'll be doing later is colorizing those red bits with this render. So these red sections that are flat now, they're going to be rendered later using what's underneath here.
Okay, so now that we have the first layer of shading done, I'm going to move on to the next one. So what I'm going to do is make a new layer above that one, and I'm going to set it to multiply, and I usually take it down to 50% also. And the reason that I have it set to multiply is just so that it just makes it a little bit darker, and it still keeps any shading that I have underneath relevant as well. Okay, so I just need to make a selection so I don't go outside of the lines, and yeah, and now I'm just kind of brushing around smaller little portions. So just little parts that need just an extra touch of shading. So this is kind of like the minimal, just a bit smaller touches of dark shading that I'm going to do. And it's just going to add that, kind of enhance that cell shading look a little bit more and make it look more detailed. You see what I mean here around the leg, and it's just added that little bit more depth or rendering to it. It makes it feel a little bit more 3D-ish. And I'm going to keep just touching up little bits here and there. So I'll just continue through here, and I'll show you what I mean. I'm just going to do a bit more of this with these, a few more touches on this, and then I'll explain it a little bit more at the end. Okay, so now that the extra level of shading is complete, you can see the kind of effect it has on the character now. So if I just hide that layer, that's what we had before, and that's what we've got now. So I'm just switching it on and off, and you can just see. So that really helps, just that a little bit more, and that's as much as I need to kind of do with that. The next thing we're going to do is lighting, and we're going to add all those lighting touches.
It's going to be the same, very much the same kind of effects as, the same technique as we've just done with the shading. So what I do is we'll go back to the bottom, probably above the soft shading though, and we'll make a new layer, and I usually do the next 3 layers of lighting instead of shading. I'm going to actually hold Alt and grab that shade there, so we go back to that medium tone. This just helps me get an idea. And now I'm going to rise that up into more of a light grey, about there. And again, we're going to probably do a soft, with the soft brush, we're going to do some really soft lighting. Over the top, just in some certain areas, just like this, and especially on those fingertips there, just a bit more there, nice and strong, and on the top of the head there as well. And don't worry, it's not going to be this light when I'm done with it. This is just so I can hang up. There we go. And a bit more on the chest there, because that's where the light will hit, and then a little bit on the ribs, and no, not really going to touch there. We're just going to do a bit on the leg and the foot, and that should be about right. Okay, so I want to get that now and fade it back to 50 like I did before with the shading. And then I'm going to go a new layer above that. And I'll take that down to 50 as well, about 55 probably. And I'm going to use my sharp pen tool, and I'm going to use that to start doing the big, I'm going to, like I did before, we're going to try and cover a lot of ground with the lighting this time. So I'm not really going to hold back, just kind of thinking about where I can place this and go from there. And I'll just do this and then we'll come back to it.
So one thing I'm thinking of when I'm doing all this is I'm kind of thinking of the shiny or glossy part of his suit, so not trying to make it look too metallic or anything, but I just think this cell shaded look is really good for these kind of suits. So I'm trying to take advantage of that, and that's why I've set the tone of this one a little stronger so that we can really have it stand out. And yeah, you can just see as I'm going, I'm just trying to think of the most highlighted part, like where the light might hit it most, because the light would be coming from the top left or so. And yeah, and also as I get to the next level here, which is the new layer above, and it's even stronger. So now I'm thinking of extra highlights, extra strong, and I'm thinking of that glossy look that I want to achieve with this. And I can even touch up little corners and little edges. This one's more precise, so I'm not covering any kind of large portions. I'm literally just doing little touches and little strokes to add detail and really make it kind of pop. This is the layer that will really make it pop and feel a little extra shiny and a little bit glossy. So yeah.
Okay, so it's fully rendered now. So I've done all the, the shading and the lighting and everything. So I'll show you what I'll do next. It's all about playing around. So I open it up into Photoshop now. It's just a little bit easier for me to play around with, I think, just years and years of Photoshop. I just feel way more comfortable doing it in here. So now that I've done all the rendering in Clip Studio Paint, I am going to play around with that rendering now in Photoshop. So down here, I'm just going to add a new layer folder. Just call it render. And this is just what I like to do to keep it all neat and tidy. So put it in that little folder there. So all these layers here, so you got the fill, and everything above it is all the rendering layers. So I'll show you one by one what we did. I may as well put this dark shadows one above in there as well, because I think that's now a part of it. So yes, so we have our fill, and then I did the soft shadowing, and then we have the light shadowing. Oh, the lighting is coming in now. And then I have the cell shaded, like the first one that we did, the dark shading. And then I have, it looks a bit blotchy there because we had the other one above, but this is the second layer of the darkening over the top of that, then the lighting, and then the dark shadowing over the top, which I will now make black, like full black, I think. I'm just trying to work that out. You see, I'm not really, I think I know what I'm going to do with this. I'm still trying to work with it as we go. But what I'll probably do is I'll set that top, this is the really dark shadows that I put on top of here. I'll set that to luminosity here in that mode. Because what that'll do is if I lighten any part of that, so we'll select the dodge tool and we want to highlight the shadows. And if I started to do that, just here, it'll start to blend with everything underneath. And that way it's not so strong, and I do want it to be nice and strong and black, but I think it'll just match my style more if I start to shade it like that. And that's probably what we're going to do. And then we'll keep the really heavy tones there. So yeah, that's what we'll do. We'll get to that eventually. For now, I just want to play around with everything and try and show you how I do it. So I think what we're going to do is, this is very important to me, this dark shadowing that I did with the inks. So I'm going to keep that on its own layer. Now for all the rest, we're keeping the shine on the top layer as well, because I don't want to touch that yet. But for everything else, that one doesn't have any layer. But for now, I might duplicate this entire thing before I do anything. So duplicate, hide that, just so I've got a backup. Okay, I'm sorry this is all over the place. So what I'm going to do is flatten all of this render. So I'm going to flatten that. Now, because what I can do is start to really, play around with it now. So I'm going to get my burn tool, and I'm just going to set it to mid-tones, or even highlights actually, so that way I don't otherwise it's going to be too deep. So, and now I'm just going to do where I think it should be a bit darker down here. I'm just going to quickly throw a few soft bits of shading over there, a bit like that. And down near that knee there, I really think this knee needs to be becoming a little bit more darker, and especially this back leg. So I'm just going to darken that one a bit more, and I'm even going to darken those highlights because I don't want them to be so strong there. All right, that's all right. So back to that bit. Now, around the ribs there, that looks like it's popping out a bit too much for me. I don't like that. Okay, yeah, that's better. Probably not so intense. Okay. And now, under the arm there, I want to do a bit darker under the arm. And across here, and especially under this palm here, it looks a bit too sharp for me. So I'll just darken that a little bit. All right, I think the rest is okay. Maybe just that bicep there. And maybe that part of the lower face. Now, just trying to think as I go. All right, here comes the next trick, which is getting this red. I'm going to control click, which will only select the red areas. Then I'm going to hover over this render, and I'm going to press duplicate so that it comes up. So control J, and then I usually drag that shadowing underneath the color. Now we're going to show the red. I'm going to get that color mode on the red and change it to color. And you can see, since I've done that, the underneath one is the render. That is set to color, so it's showing all the render here. You can see in the fingers, now the red is actually rendered. Yeah, but what we need to do is probably lighten. I'm just trying to think. So I need to go levels, and I'm just going to lighten that up a bit, just so it's not so, just play around with it so it looks a bit better. That should do it for now. And I'm going to flatten them together, so just Control E, while I have to select both of those, and then Control E. Okay, so now we have the red, and I just want to leave that, we're going to show that now and leave it showing. Okay, so the black underneath, I'm just trying to work out if I want to have that full black. Yeah, probably keep it full black. All right, we're going to do that. And I'm just going to duplicate this render underneath, hide that one. No, I'll keep it shown actually. And now I'm going to play around the levels. I want to go levels, and I'm going to darken it even more underneath. So probably not that. I want to probably darken it so it looks more black. I think that's really going to help. Maybe bring up these shadows a little bit more. So that's what it was, and that's what it is now. Now don't worry, because I know it looks quite dark, but what I'm going to do, it gets quite complicated, but what I'm going to do is put a layer mask on it, get my brush tool, bump that up to soft brush, and then I'm going to brush over, whoops, on the mask, just parts that I want to really pop out more, like the chest area, definitely. I want that to pop out more, and the head, especially top of the head there, and probably where the nose is, just a little bit. Put around the head, and anything that's directly in the where the sun might be showing, which is up this direction. And then just around the hand there. Okay, and this leg can have a bit more over there. All right. So if I hide that and show you what it was before, that's what it was before, and that's what it is now. It's just a little bit more softer. I'm still not happy with that though, so what I'm going to do, I really think we should take advantage of the really dark shadowing that I've got. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to merge them together. I'll just check them, yep. So I'm just going to probably take that down to 80%, merge them together, but then I think duplicate again. And then I want to rise them up, show that dark shadowing a bit more. There we go, that looks a bit better. So if I hide that and then show it again, you can see we're making the most of that really dark shadowing there, and it's kind of showing his suit a bit more. So I think I'm a bit happier with that. I think that'll be okay. Hide that shine underneath. There we go, that's a bit better. Yeah, we'll do that. Okay. So now I want to move on to the red and try and get that to look a bit better. So where's my original render? Down here. So I'm going to, this is where all the different levels of shading are. I think I want to select the next one. Where is it? Yeah, probably the overall one there. Yep. And I'm just control clicking. So it's actually making a selection of it. We can hide that now. Go back up to red. And what I want to do is get my burn tool out and stick it to shadows. And just under the chest here, I can see it's just looking a bit too flat. So I want to go and shade under that chest a little bit more. And especially under that arm there as well. And around the spider for sure. I just need this to look a bit more rendered. It's not looking as complete. And just around here, I can release that now, that shadow. So we need this to really be a nice deep strong red instead of what it is now. And I'll just grab that render again. So where's that? Down here. Nope, that's not it. And keep going. So I'm still going. Definitely under those fingertips and across there. There. Okay. I'm just burning and darkening these edges here that are really, so it's not so flat. Okay, I'm happy with that. That's good. Now, same thing. I'm going to go down here. I'm going to now control click on some highlights. So maybe that one there. Go back up to the red again. This time I'm going to highlight the midtones. Whoops, I better set it to dodge, the dodge tool. And I'm still on the red layer, remember? So I want to just kind of highlight some parts here that I think would need it. Do that there. That bit there and that bit there on the eye. Definitely this part here as well. Now I've just realized that shine hasn't shown up on the red, so I need to fix that. It's because I've got it on a layer underneath, that's why. So I'm just fixing this, there we go. Especially on the spider here, I want that spider to look nice and rendered and a bit glossy. So just on his arms there. Very important. Okay. So where's that shine layer? Here it is. So if I get the red layer, maybe we'll just hide that. Oh, we can't do that, can we? Oh, yes, we can. Yes. So I've hidden that under the shine layer now. Yes, that's even better. So the red is now above our black in there. So that's good. Okay, so the eyes are still looking a bit flat. So I need to fix that and render them a little bit more, make them a bit stronger. I don't want to go too dark because then the red will blend too much with the black, and it's nice to have that separation, the contrast between the two colors. So that's definitely looking a bit better. And I think I just want to add a little bit of a highlight around this part here, and definitely on that part there with the chest. Okay, so it's coming along well. It's coming along. Okay, so that's it for today's tutorial, and thanks for watching. You can see we've fully rendered Miles now. He's mostly there. So, but stay tuned for next week. Next week I'll be covering details. So I'll be going further into this pose, and I'm going to show you how I'm doing all the details and last minute things like that. So that's what's to look forward to next, and then there'll be the background after that, and we'll be covering a lot on the background. So yeah, thanks again for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and got a bit out of it, and I will see you next week.